We've known about light for hundreds of years. I mean, people have asked questions about it. Al Hazen over there in the Arab world, he worked on light, and so did a lot of his friends out there. They worked on light, and they tried to figure it out. And in the 17th century, 1665 primarily, Robert Hooke, he's the first one who noticed that light had these wavy things. He said, oh, it looks like a wave, like water waves. He was looking through the microscope at some of the things that he was going to draw, because they didn't have snapshots in those days. They couldn't take a picture. But he drew them, and he put them in this book called Micrographia. And he's the first one who proposed the wave theory of light, that, that apparently light had some wave characteristics. And later on, Huygens and others worked on it further. And what's the issue? The issue is here, it's been 400 years since then. Do these people, these mathematical physicists who, have these great men of science as their precursors, do they have any idea what light is today? And the answer, well, let's find out what the answer is. Let's see if these people can tell us what light is. Here's one fellow, and his name is Arvin Ash. And what Arvin tells us is that, light apparently goes in one direction. It's made out of particles. This is the notion, because he's talking about bouncing. So listen to him. Don't listen to me. Listen to him. He's going to tell you that light is made out of particles because it bounces, goes forwards and bounces. Here it is.
Look around the room that you're in. What you're seeing is not matter. You can't really see matter. What you're seeing is the light bouncing off that matter that enters your eyes, that your brain then interprets as matter, as objects. So you're not seeing the objects themselves, but the light bouncing off of it.
Okay, we have to think of particles hitting the guy's eyes and bouncing off. I mean, that's what he seems to be describing or explaining, right? So now we know light, according to at least this gentleman, are particles that hit the eye and bounce. Okay, so that's what you receive every second of the day. But here we have another fellow, and his name is Derek Muller, and he's going to give us something similar. He's going to say how light originates. It originates in the quantum jump. Okay, you have this electron bead going between orbitals, between energy levels. When it comes down, it releases energy. Okay, that's the one. That's the part he's going to explain. Another fellow is going to explain the other side of that coin, and here it is. Listen to him. Here it is.
It has a positive charge in the center and negative electrons whizzing around it. Why don't they just spiral into the nucleus, radiating their energy as they go?
Yeah, why don't they answer that question? I mean, they had that question for 100 years. Why doesn't the electron spiral to the nucleus? One is negative, the other one's positive. They attract each other. Positive attracts negative. There should be a collision in the nucleus. That doesn't happen according to their atom, right? In their version of the atom. So they never explained that. That was the reason quantum was started 100 years ago, and then here we are 100 years later, and we still don't have an answer from the mathematical establishment to that question. Now, here's another fellow. His name is Matt O'Dowd, and he's going to give you the other version when light comes into the atom. Okay, listen to him. Here goes.
Normally, if you radiate a bunch of atoms or molecules with a bunch of photons, each might absorb a photon, bumping an electron to a higher energy level, and then radiate another photon as the electron loses that energy.
Okay, so we're all on board. We have this electron bead. Negative electron bead goes around. For some reason, it doesn't fall to the nucleus. They're still investigating that after 100 years, but we cannot explain why it spontaneously doesn't fly away either. We don't have a physical interpretation for that. They can probably explain it with words such as energy, meaning they don't have an explanation. They just have a mathematical description, but we don't have an explanation for why. What causes the electron bead not to fall or to fly away? Both those sides. And after all is said and done, we have another fellow, and his name is Nick Lucid, and he has a show on YouTube, and he says the electron doesn't orbit. Okay, you what? I thought these guys go to the same school and they come up with different ideas, and the question is who's right? Here it is. Listen to him.
The idea of electrons orbiting in atoms is totally ridiculous. The electrons would continuously lose energy until the atom collapsed.
Okay, now who's right? Which quantum version should you accept? Should you accept the one Matt Dowd and Derek Muller proposed, that there's an electron bead going around the nucleus? Or should we go with the one that Nick Lucid proposes, says, no, the electron doesn't go around, because otherwise it would fall into the nucleus. So they all tell you what it ain't. No one tells you what is. I need to know what is then. But see, they never give you an explanation. And here you go through high school and college, and you never get an explanation to how the atom works. They still don't have the slightest clue. And obviously, because they've got the wrong model. They have the bead model, the particle model, which should have been discarded 100 years ago. You can't do physics with discrete particles. You can't do gravity, you can't do entanglement with discrete particles, assuming you use those as mediators. You still can't affect the guy on the other side, much less instantaneously, So, yeah, it's a big problem. And here you have, again, is this what they're invoking? Are they invoking the planetary model? Okay. And yeah, this is what they're invoking. And so they use this model, but it's a ridiculous model because they cannot explain, why the electron doesn't fall or fly away spontaneously. But that's the one they use, and that's the one they're going to explain quantum jump. They're going to explain ionization. They're going to explain electricity, all with that model. So the model is ridiculous, it's irrational, but that's the one they use for explanations. And then they tell you, well, that's not our atom. Okay, show me the real atom then. Okay, just in case, Derek comes back and he tells us that, the light not only has wave nature, but matter has wave nature as well. And here it is, listen to him.
If light could be both a wave and a particle, then maybe matter particles could also be waves.
Okay, so now it's matter can also have wave properties. We all wave. So they have all these wavy notions. We have Mr. Nick Lucid again, but he comes back and he says, hey, I can tell you exactly what light is. Okay, finally, someone who has the nerve, the balls, to tell us what light is. Here it is. Listen to him.
Light? What is it exactly? Light isn't a wave in matter. It's an electromagnetic wave. Light is made of particles. We call the particles of light photons. So which is it, waves or particles? Both. Those things that you always hear being called particles actually display properties of both. They're particle waves.
So now it's particle waves, wave particles, duality, complementarity. That's what it is. So they use both. They say it's both. They covered all the bases so that you can't criticize them. They say it's both a particle and it's also a wave. And Niels Bohr said, the experiment is the one that pulls out which of the two this thing is going to collapse to, right? And just in case, we have Mr. Arvin Ash, and he's going to tell us that light doesn't really travel. It's not photons. It's not waves. What travels is information. So let's see what good old Ash has to say here. This is what they learned by rote. Here, listen to him.
All the information that you have is carried by tiny quantum objects that make up that light called photons. And this information is traveling at the speed of light.
Okay, so now you know it's not light that travels, not photons that travel. What travels is information. They have all these concepts traveling through the air. Intelligence goes in that direction. Love goes in that direction. Information always goes straight, so watch out. You got to duck because all these concepts are flying around. Anyways, here we have good old Mr. Penrose. He's a Nobel Prize winner. Hey, you got to listen to him, right? Okay, so here it is, and he's going to tell you something about the wave function collapse. What is that? When the wave hits a wall, it's like a fart. It hits the wall, it turns into shit. Well, this is more or less the same thing. You have the wave, it hits something and turns into a ball. And he says consciousness is not what collapses the wave function. What collapses the wave function is what? Physics, meaning a physical entity, some physical object. So there is something in physics which collapses the wave function. The Schrodinger equation, quantum theory as a whole, is wrong. Whoa. Oh man, he can say that after he wins a Nobel Prize, not before. Otherwise he'd never make it there. Quantum mechanics is wrong. Jesus Christ, those are strong words. Einstein and Schrodinger said it was incomplete. Okay, incomplete means wrong. Yeah, he can say that because he's a macho man. He's up there now. He's got his Nobel, and he's 90 years old, so he doesn't care anymore. But he couldn't have said that 50 years ago, before he was somebody, If he would have said it then, that would have been the end of his career. But now he can get away with it. And that's what they do. When they're young, they all vouch for quantum mechanics and relativity. When they're old, they say, well, I didn't understand squat all these 50 years, and I think it's garbage. And that's what I'm saying now. I'm saying it's all garbage, okay? Please understand. Okay, there's one fellow out there. He says he can bend light. And the question again, are we going to bend light, or are we going to deflect the photons? Are we going to deviate them from their path? Right? Those are two different concepts. I mean, if light is made out of photons or even out of one-way waves, moving like in that direction, right? And then suddenly it turns a corner, well, then you can't say it bent. What's bending? A wave is bent? No, you can say the wave was deflected, or the photon, the particle was deflected, but not bent. But these people talk about the bending of light. And they all talk the same way, and here it is. Listen to him, and he's going to show you how he bends light also. Okay, here it is.
I'm going to be showing you a crazy cool experiment that just shows you how to bend light.
So, can we bend light? It would appear like that's the case, right? But see, if every atom is connected to every other atom, and there's gazillions of atoms in just, a cubic centimeter, gazillions of them in there, right? And every atom is connected to another one, you cannot say that light was bent, right? Curved. No, from one atom to another, it's straight. From that atom to another atom, it's straight. But if you take all those, then for our macro world with our eyes, right, it looks like a curve. And here, let me show you what I'm talking about. Here you see some patterns that are made, curved patterns that are made all with straight lines. So you don't need to bend anything. In other words, light doesn't have to bend. You can make, curved surfaces or curved patterns with straight lines. And there you see it. And that's exactly what light does. Light goes from one atom to another atom in a straight line, right? We can say straight line here. They're taut. The ropes are taut. Okay, that's what we're proposing here, that all atoms are interconnected by elongated ropes. And from one atom to another atom, the light travels straight because it's a torsion of a taut medium. That's why it can't get lost. It can't curve or anything like that. It's always it's torquing in place in situ, okay, between any two atoms. But atoms are close by together, so if you put a gazillions of them, you say, well, light curved. No, light did not curve. What happened was from one atom to the other, it was straight, but there's so many atoms so close together that for our macro world, it looks like a curve. That's all it is. And here's what we're proposing. Again, we have two atoms bound by a taut rope. And both those atoms are connected to every atom in the universe, again, by taut mediators that have the appearance of a rope. That's why we propose the rope model. Okay? We're saying between any two atoms, like if my fists are atoms, so this is always tight. That's what it is. And what you have is torsion. Okay, that's what it is. That's why light travels so fast, because it is a torsion of a medium that's already in place. It doesn't have to travel. These people think that, a photon goes from A to B. No, there's no A to B. What is moving, you can say, the signal that's propagating along the rope, what it is essentially the torsion of the rope itself that already gets a signal at the other end. That's why light is so fast. And with a physical object, you can explain that. In fact, I always suggest that people will take, you take your grandmother's clothesline, put it tight between 2 points, as tight as you possibly can get it, tighten it up. And just put 2 clothespins, like I did. And you move one and the other one moves instantaneously. You film it, you'll see it. Do the experiment or the observation. You'll prove it to yourself. You don't come here to believe, we come here to explain. There's the explanation. You want to do it, go ahead and do it. Okay, and where did I get this notion that, all atoms are interconnected? Well, here you have, again, Richard Muller. He's from Berkeley University, and this is what he's got to say. He says, every atom on Earth is pulling on every atom of you. You are also pulling on it. So how do you pull unless you have something like this, some elongated mediator between 2 atoms that are pulling on each other? Okay, so, unless you do black magic and say, look, one atom's pulling on the other one, but there's no mediator. Yeah, tell me about it. Then you're not doing physics. Now you're doing Alice in Wonderland, So he's saying every atom on Earth is pulling on every atom of you. You're also pulling on it. You're pulling on atoms right now on the other side of the Earth. So this atom here is pulling on an atom that's on the other side of the Earth. And it says gravity goes through things. So it goes right through the Earth to the other atom on the other side of the Earth. Now, you should stop and think about that for a second, because you can't explain that with relativity. You can't explain that with general relativity. You cannot explain it with space-time. And how is quantum mechanics going to explain it? Well, with negative momentum transfer or some nonsense like that, so Yukawa potential or whatever, they have to go into math. They can't do it physically. They cannot show you in the lab how that happened. I can show you here in the lab. Here's the lab, okay? I can show you why. This one pulls on that one only if there's an elongated mediator. You don't like the rope, you'd rather have, I don't know, here's a thread. If I can get it here. Here's a thread, okay? Hey, there you go. Okay? That's more or less what we're talking about. Of course, this is extremely thick compared to what the rope is in reality. But now you can see why this finger can pull on that hand, because they're connected by something. But how do I pull? How do I pull with nothing in between? You got to put something in there. And so mathematicians say, well, I can't see anything, I can't touch anything, so there's nothing there. An object is not that which you can see or touch. An object is that which has shape. There's something here that has shape that I cannot see or touch. That's their logical conclusion. And never occurred to them that, something like that could be our real world. And that's the issue. The issue is that they have never identified the invisible, intangible objects that have shape that Mother Nature and Father Universe use to do their daily work.